Well, hello and welcome back to another edition of It's a Woman's World. And we always bring you enlightened, helpful, powerful, impactful women. And of course, today is no different. We have a beautiful guest that behind every good woman is the women who have come before her. Something my mother always said. And something that we're going to share with you today, the power and the impact of women in the workplace. Not only that, but we live full and whole and complete lives that have so much grace, so much interest with all of the wonderful people that we get to meet along the way. And we're so grateful that you get to be with us today. And I'm your host, Jamila Pettiford. Let me go ahead and introduce all of the hosts that are with me. Let's start first with Barbara Lavalier. Hello, Barbara. Good morning.
Hello, Jamila. Great to be with you, and I'm so excited to have the opportunity to ask questions of Susan Loyd.
Welcome, Barbara.
Thank you.
Nadia Jordana. How are you?
Thank
Welcome.
thank you, Jamila. I'm so happy to be here. Also, this is going to be a very interesting discussion.
Yes, it is, as always. And Candy Pettiford. How are you? Welcome.
All is well, and I feel welcomed. Let's get going.
Let's get going. And of course, our special guest. We're so honored to have you here, Susan Loyd. We are honored to have you be a part of It's a Woman's World. And you have done so many great things in your life. We are excited to hear about you. But let's start first. As I was looking through your information, it says that you are a part of the Better Business Bureau. Tell us about your position and what is it that you do with the Better Business Bureau?
Thanks, Jamila. And it is really an honor to be here with this lovely panel today and to share a little bit about my work and my experiences in the work world. As CEO and president of Better Business Bureau, I have the honor of leading a organization that a nonprofit. We're the largest professional association in the upper Midwest with 7,000 member businesses, accredited businesses. We're part of a federation of international Better Business Bureaus. There are 94 of us that are scattered across Canada and the United States. My service area, my team services Minnesota and North Dakota, but we work in combination and collaboration with the other BBBs across North America, as I mentioned. And in addition to helping businesses be better, especially in the area of customer service, we do a lot of consumer education, especially relative to scam prevention. And I would say just better tuning people to what one should expect from products and services when they're engaging with a business. And in this online world, oftentimes business relationships are more transactional rather than relational. And I'm an advocate in really understanding who you're doing business with. In order to advance marketplace trust, you need to know who to trust and who is trustworthy. And that's a lot of what Better Business Bureau does. So I'm meeting with businesses throughout the day, throughout the week, month, year, but as well meeting very interested consumers in helping and helping them. Our team helps them to be more savvy and capable consumers. So it's interesting. It's a different scenario. Every day I learn about the good things and sometimes the not so good things, but I like to think that Minnesota and North Dakota is a great place to do business. So it's an honor to serve the marketplace.
Susan, we've known each other for quite a long while, and I also knew your parents, powerful couple. And I was wanting to know and have you share with our viewers the maybe one or two qualities that they raised you to have, and then after you share about your parents, maybe one or two people who have influenced you in the incredibly successful and diverse career that you've had.
Well, thank you, Barbara. You're so kind to bring up my parents. And my father, Milt Adams, my mother, Jean Adams, were longtime professionals in the media world. They spent most of their career in the advertising arena, but worked radio, television, newspaper. My mother, in fact, was a copywriter way back in the day for Dayton's that obviously evolved into Target. So that was a very proud, wonderful part of her career. And as a child of being in tow, I guess, with a mother and father who visited every radio, TV, and newspaper company in our region, I had the wonderful vantage point of looking at the media from the sort of inside out. And that is really where the bulk of my career was spent. My background education is in communication. I have an undergraduate degree from the University of Minnesota in broadcasting, and then also have a degree from Minnesota State Mankato in communications. Later went to Harvard for management. But broadcasting is how I see myself. And I had wonderful teachers and mentors in my parents, and this strange neighborhood that we lived in, where a lot of the legends of broadcasting in the upper Midwest were right from my neighborhood. So I grew up next door to a legendary radio broadcaster named Dick Chapman, who you might remember from WCCO AM. And then actually around the corner, Roger Osmond, who was Casey Jones and Cedric Adams Jr.'s son, lived a few houses down, and I could go on and on. So it wasn't only in the professional exposure that my parents oriented me towards that, but just in the neighborhood, where whether it was being in the homes of families where that was part of one's life, I never had any question about what I wanted to do in life. And I think as a young woman, especially having a mother who was in a white collar job, it never occurred to me that there were barriers in my generation. Now, that's not to say that there weren't times, Barbara, where I didn't face some challenges, especially in a world where the higher one got up on the food chain, the fewer women and people of color there were. So I used to say by default, I was sort of the diversity go-to person, even though that wasn't my expertise. But to have that, I would say, role model, to have that passion, to have really early in life a direction is an advantage that a lot of young people don't have, and especially young women back in a time where we thought of ourselves as being teachers and nurses, traditional roles, mothers, but not necessarily in a white collar profession. So the last thing I'll say, in second grade, we got to a little chapter on what we were going to tell a story of what you wanted to be when you grow up. And we did little tiny second grade sort of research projects. And I drew and wrote about as best I could and tried to explain this imaginary TV station that I would run one day. And so well vested I was in that, in my mind, it wasn't, like I say, a question of when or if. And I am so blessed to say that I spent some of the best years of my career as general manager at WCCO Television. And what was very fun, in the lobby at WCCO TV was a picture of me in 1963 on the Clancy and Company show. As a kid, I was on the program for my birthday. It was my 5th birthday. And I imagine, because Clancy is leaning over, asking me a question you can see in the picture. And I sort of imagine in my head, I remember the day, I don't remember what he asked me, but in my head, I'm thinking, little girl, what do you want to be when you grow up? And me saying, well, actually, I want to be your boss. Because in fact, who could have ever imagined that opportunity would have been presented to me? And I'm so humble and grateful to not only those who chose me and gave me that opportunity, but the wonderful team at WCCO Television, WCCO Radio, that's no longer affiliated, but that entire team of broadcasters is just the best and the brightest. And to be among them was truly one of the great honors of my life. So that's a little bit about background on all of my parents, but the many people in the business around whom I was exposed, and people who took a risk, people took on me who showed me the way. I always say there's only 27 people in broadcast, and we all know each other. And I think there's a particular affinity, or let's just say camaraderie, where we bring each other along. So whether it's starting out with an internship or an apprenticeship, all the way through being sort of the cub reporter or a junior executive, I think there's a great spirit of bringing other people along. So it's hard for me to enumerate, Barbara, exactly who among them were most influential. But I say to all of them, any of them that would be listening out there, my colleagues as well as my bosses and employees, thank you, everybody. It's been a wonderful journey.
Well, Susan, I kind of want to get you a little snippet of what's some of the positives and what's some of the things you say, oh, I don't like that about this job. Just give us a little snippet about that.
Sure, I'm going to harken back first to the broadcast career, because believe it or not, the way I got to Better Business Bureau is also because our board of directors was looking for somebody with media experience. So I'm going to put Better Business Bureau, even though it's a very different industry, I'm going to put that all in one barrel, if you will, because I think leadership, no matter how you ascend, there are connectivity all over the place. And nowadays, especially with social media, I always say that every single company is a communications company, and every single organization is a worldwide communications company, because the internet, of course, connects us with people everywhere. So, Candy, to answer your question, I would say for me, in my roles, I got into management very early. And although I think of myself as being a creative person, an artist trapped, if you will, in a very analytical life, from about the age of 25, I was already managing people and kind of went the trajectory of leadership rather than creation. So I'd like to think of myself as a writer, producer, director, but in fact, I haven't done that full time for a long, long time. So in that circle of ascension, if you will, as I started to rise through the ranks and essentially had the first front row seat to the creative process in managing creative people. Because even though journalism isn't necessarily creative, that's more analytical, it's still the process of producing content is a very collaborative and creative process. And the good things about it are, as I wrote when I was in second grade, it's always fun. Every day there's this sense of something that's going to happen, and an opportunity to learn stories and hear stories of people and communities and organizations and businesses. And that to me is the fun of it, the great part about it. As I think over the past 10 to 15 years, unfortunately, the media has become villainized. For some reason, everybody likes to blame the media. Oh, I'm out here, in fact, today on the East Coast, and I had someone reach out to me and ask me about the forecast. It's like, is that snowstorm really real? Or are those broadcasters just whining again about something that's not going to happen? And I like to tell you that my experience in the media was quite different than that. I have always felt that media people it's like a calling. It's like a community service. It's a sense of not necessarily want to exploit power or control the message, but an opportunity to help others come along. So while I'm sure there are good guys and bad guys when you rank media companies, and certainly we've heard a lot of what happens at Fox News or CNN of that nature, I would like to say most of the people in the media that I came across were very earnest and interested in finding the truth. And although the truth can be obtained through many lenses and uncovered in many ways, it's like the story that's never finished, because as you uncover the truth in different layers, there's always more to expose. So my experience has been the opposite, that the people inside, no matter where they stood politically or religiously or generationally or gender-wise, gender identity-wise, I felt the majority of people were looking to be collaborative and help one another. The bad side, if I would say it, just real in short, is again the generation that I came up in. I mentioned it earlier, there wasn't a lot of inclusion, and particularly for women and people of color, it was always a challenge to be heard. And I got to experience that firsthand. And I will tell you, one of my big jobs, as I was applying for the job, I was flown to New York City. I had a Saturday morning interview with the top brass. I tell this story. I came into this room, they had a chair in front of a table, and there were 8 people behind the table sitting kind of like a tribunal. It actually looked like the Last Supper, with these big New Yorkers all sitting behind the table ready to interview me. And they gave me a chair seated in front of us. So there wasn't even any place for me to put my portfolio. And I had a suit on. So I uncomfortably was trying to cross my legs and sit up tall and ladylike. And the head person of that broadcast company said, all right, let's get started here. I'll start out the question. Let's get things rolling. Susan, tell us, what does your husband do?
Oh.
And I started talking like a robot because I couldn't believe that I just heard what I heard. And I mean, that's the kind of thing that just makes you go, huh. So our world has a long way to go. I think the media is more like a mirror than anything. It reflects a broader sense, although there is a lot of power and control in the messaging. Candy, I would say that my experience has just been fantastic in the ride. And I think the next generation of journalists, the next generation of media providers, social media, as new media uncovers, the truth and the avenues to truth is more powerful and more available than others. We just have to bring others along to be resourced so that they have the same impact as traditional media has had.
Thank you for that.
Wow. I have a question. Susan, with regard to the Better Business Bureau, my first introduction to the Better Business Bureau was at a business class while I was still in high school. And I found it fascinating. And of course, I've had associations as far as calling and checking on businesses throughout my lifetime. And that's always been a very positive resource and a positive experience. But in modern times, or recent years, I shouldn't say modern times, but recent years, with the advent of the internet, what are some of the big changes in the Better Business Bureau with regard to how the interaction is with the public and how they're accessed? And has there been anything that's been taking people just to Google things on the internet? Although I don't know that that's the best way to learn about a company.
So Nadia, that's such an astute question, because I think, the Better Business Bureau was actually founded in Minnesota in 1912. So believe it or not, we're an international association, first founded in Minnesota. And it was founded because as life was unfolding at the turn of the last century and more mechanisms like newspaper and the early advent of radio were unfolding, media messages, marketing messages, businesses making claims about themselves were sometimes outlandish. You could say the carpetbaggers were coming to town and making all sorts of claims about snake oil or tonics that you could take for your health, or new things like automobiles that people weren't quite sure about the technology. So again, getting the facts and understanding the differences between marketing messages and call it business promises about a product or services. And for many decades after that, there were very few places where a consumer could go or another business to find out about its competitor, to find out what was fact and what was fiction. And the premise of the Better Business Bureau was that we were always looking for the truth. So again, you can see my connection back to the broadcast world, uncovering the truth and what is fact versus what is fiction. And we think at Better Business Bureau that best proof, if you will, in the pudding is, does a company deliver on its promise to the marketplace or to consumers? So we learn in part some of that from businesses, and some of that we learn from consumers. And consumers will certainly tell us, good, bad, or indifferent, their experiences about a company. And I think oftentimes, unfortunately, people think of the Better Business Bureau as a place to call or to engage when there's a problem. And in fact, we do a lot of that. Consumer mediation is a big part of what we do. And uncovering really how to get to the fulfillment of that product or service promise to a consumer from a business that hasn't delivered. However, that being said, we do more in the area of reviews than we do complaints nowadays. So the cool thing about Better Business Bureau is that we do reviews and complaints. We handle complaints. We actually pick up the phone. So unlike the internet, where you might complain online and never talk to a human being, Better Business Bureau, we're devoted to bringing transactions to fruition. So we're not pro-business always, we're not pro-consumer, we're pro-transaction and making sure that products and services have been transacted. So our reviews are vetted. And so unlike the review that you get at a business's website where people are giving the business a 5-star review, which one would hope that most of that is real, but how do you know for sure that a business's communications department didn't just sit down and write a bunch of fake reviews? We actually vet the reviews to make sure that they're genuine. So when you go to bbb.org and look up a business and see complaints and reviews, you know with almost certainty that those are legitimate complaints and legitimate reviews. And then we also publish the responses to the complaints, because our goal is not to put the business in a bad light. Our goal is to show that the business, we all make mistakes, we all come up short. Gosh, right now with supply chains and all sorts of mayhem in the marketplace, things sometimes don't go as businesses would hope. And we allow the business to respond to that consumer. No, we installed the pink bathroom because that's what the contract said, and you claim we didn't put in the blue bathroom. We'll work with you to change that so the blue bathroom is okay. But actually, we did fulfill the obligation. Or, you know what? You're right. We mistook the order. It's our fault. We'll put the blue bathroom in. And it allows the business to show in its, full scope to the community of what it can do. And so in this world of the internet, and I would say particularly the last 20 years, the one thing that Better Business Bureau does better than just, the open marketplace that's online is that we're still a trusted source of information. We vet our information. So bbb.org is usually go to the company's website to find out who you're dealing with. Even better, if they have a brick and mortar store, go to the store, because that relational engagement with a company is best when there's actually a person and they exist. But that said, the second place you want to go is bbb.org and check out that company to make sure that the claims that the company's making are substantiated. And I would say in this modern world, in this online age, we help substantiate so that, again, those claims are valid and real, and not just marketing claims that are, floated out there in a overly glowing positive light. Our information is based on fact.
So it's good to say basically that you went into communications because you were going to be communicating with all sorts of different folk, communicating what was needed, what needed to happen, how to repair. Well, I want you to know, Susan, our time always goes so fast. And so we have literally like 2 minutes I just wanted to ask you, I know that you spoke a lot about the Better Business Bureau, but you are a whole woman, which we got a chance to hear with Barbara's question about your beautiful family, your beautiful life. Would you give us just maybe about 60 seconds? You are a marathon sprinter. You are a wife. You are a mother. You are so many great things outside of the Better Business Bureau. Do you think that you could run down a quick 60 seconds of just the whole of you, as a mother, as a wife, as a marathon sprinter, as this person who's coming from a great culture of talented folks, it sounds.
Well, Jamila, you you humble me. I've just been one of the luckiest ducks on earth in terms of being growing up in Minnesota, growing up in a family that was interested and curious, and really having, I would say, men and women mentors around me who are willing to bring me along for the ride. So I think that my own curiosity was satisfied by having a front row seat to the best and the brightest. Wow. And also, I married young. I have a husband and children who supported my career. Not all women have that opportunity to excel at what they do without the support of the people around them. And I'm proud to say that my children now have also gone into the media. So we have, if you count my grandfather who dabbled in radio way back in the 1920s and 30s, we're a 4-generation media family. And to, again, watch the world in the next generation, because it's not only new technologies, but it's new ways of framing that, has made me feel very, very blessed to be in the position that I am. So like to leave the world and my industry a little bit better than it was, but mostly I just am filled with gratitude for having the journey that I've had.
Well, Susan, we are always so honored to have such beautiful women like you. You have enriched the world. And so we want to thank you for being with us, Susan, and we wish you all the best in all of your endeavors. We know that you are an impactor. And we want to thank all of you. We hope that what you heard today inspires you not only to create business, but to look up the Better Business Bureau. And also to know that from each generation, make sure that you are pulling someone with you, because as we can see, Susan is a generational girl that is making impactful waves into the future. Who are you? Are you doing the same? We want to thank you, and we hope to see you again on another episode of It's a Woman's World.